welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching the NewsX Eurozone. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Thieves execute a 4-minute heist at Paris Louvre Museum, stealing 8 priceless jewels from the French crown collection. President Macron condemns the theft, pledging to recover the stolen works. Germany plans to purchase 15 additional US-made F-35 fighter jets from Lockheed Martin for $2.9 billion, according to parliamentary sources. The move, marked by Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, would bring Germany's total order to 50 F-35s. US President Donald Trump has stated that he does not want China to play the rare earth game. With the US, he also believes China will reach a deal on soybeans and wants China to purchase at least as much as before. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has stated that Kyiv is ready to supply drones to the US if Washington provides missiles to Ukraine. Zelensky further added that a contract for 25 Patriot systems is currently in preparation. Belarus Security Chief Ivan Territorial has said that his agency is seeking direct contacts with Ukraine to help reach a settlement in the war with Russia. Territorial, who heads the country's KGB, has said that President Alexander Lukashenko is working to stabilize the region. Centrist Rodrigo Paz wins Bolivia's presidential runoff with 54.5% of the vote, defeating conservative Jorge Tuto Quiroga. Paz's victory marks a historic shift away from nearly 2 decades of leftist rule, taking office on November 8th. Britain's Prince Andrew had asked Metropolitan Police in 2011 to dig up personal information on Virginia Giuffre, his teenage sexual abuse accuser, according to media reports. Andrew, the younger brother of King Charles, has stepped back from royal duties in 2019 and was stripped off of military links and patronages in 2022 as the scandal continues. Britain is drafting new legal powers to allow troops to shoot down unidentified drones. Defense Minister John Healey to announce the move follows recent incidents, including 19 drones crossing the Polish border and jets violating Estonia's airspace amid growing concerns over unidentified drone activities across Europe, which Moscow denies. Now we move on to our first news. Russia's defense ministry has announced the capture of a settlement in Ukraine's Donetsk region by Russian forces. The Kremlin has stated that the aim of the upcoming Putin-Trump summit is to advance efforts towards resolving the Ukraine and Russia conflict and to develop bilateral relations between Russia and the United States. In response to reports about what President Putin proposed to President Trump regarding Ukraine, the Kremlin has said it has already provided all the information it wanted to share on that matter. The Kremlin has also added that it has received contradictory signals from Ukraine regarding peace efforts, but they continue to communicate with the US on this issue. The Kremlin has stated that full work on the Putin-Trump summit is just beginning, and serious discussions are underway regarding a potential peace deal in Ukraine. Now we stay on this topic. The head of Belarus's security agency, Ivan Territorial, has revealed that his institution is actively working to establish contacts with Ukraine in a bid to help end the ongoing war with Russia. Territorial has emphasized the importance of dialogue, stating that such meetings are crucial for reaching a consensus in the current crisis. In his comments to state television, Territorial has acknowledged that much of the responsibility lies with Ukraine, but also stressed that Belarus's President Alexander Lukashenko is doing all he can to stabilize the region. Territorial has suggested that the solution to this conflict lies in quiet talks and a balanced approach to both sides' interests. Lukashenko, who has faced international isolation due to human rights violations, recently expressed a desire to speak with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to facilitate peace efforts. Now for this discussion, we welcome Glenn Grant. He's an ex-advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine, joins us live from Riga. Thank you very much, Glenn, for joining us again. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Now, looking at this news coming in from Belarus, did you expect Belarus to come up like this? Or why do you think Belarus is trying to advocate here? Is it just to maybe make up for the reputation that they have, the not very good reputation that they have made throughout this, during this course of the war?
I think you probably hit the nail on the head there. I mean, the head of the security services is not going to speak on television without not just authority, but almost the order of Lukashenko. And that means that Lukashenko it wants him to do this. But the idea that they can somehow help with peace tells me that two things. Either that Lukashenko thinks that peace might be coming and that Russia is possibly going to lose this war, and therefore he's looking to get back into good books of the West and Ukraine, or that Putin thinks that he's got a chance of winning the war, and therefore he's getting Lukashenko to muddy the waters and look for possibilities of Ukraine capitulating, saying so through a softer channel than the straightforward one-to-one of Putin and Zelensky. But frankly, I think it's a waste of time.
You mentioned that it's a waste of time, and just building on that, do you think Belarus, given its close ties to Russia, and also you've mentioned President Lukashenko's controversial international standing, can it be seen as a credible mediator?
There's officially no, because they're not credible. Let's be blunt about it. I mean, they've been working on the side of Putin solidly since the beginning, and I don't think that they're about to change on that until there is a real change in the geopolitical situation. I mean, don't forget, Italy changed sides during the war and went from enemy to ally. So you could quite easily see this with Belarus, because Lukashenko is a survivor. But having said that, there's always been quite good links between the Belarusians and the Ukrainians, because remember that when you take away the government, i.e. Lukashenko and his thugs, that the people of Belarus are actually really nice people, which is one of the reasons why they get caught with a bad government, because they are nice and soft people. So there will be some honest discussion between some of the people in Belarus, some of the workers in Belarus, and some of the Ukrainians. Whether that has any value, to be blunt, I doubt it, because Lukashenko is just looking for, the best deal he can get in the future.
And lastly, can a Trump-Putin summit, if it happens, genuinely contribute to peace in Ukraine?
Well, let's be blunt. At the moment, nothing, because Putin is not about to give in. At least there is no evidence at the moment that Putin is going to give in. I mean, he may get ousted if the petrol shortage gets worse and keeps going. Then a lot of companies and a lot of people are going to start getting really, really unhappy in Russia. But we're not at that stage yet. They're still in the suffering. We're great Russia. We're suffering stage. So Putin is not going to give in. He thinks he's winning. And especially now that he's got Trump totally on his side, he thinks it's now Russia and America versus Ukraine, Russia and America and Hungary and Slovakia and the Prime Minister of Czech Republic, all versus Ukraine. So he thinks he's on a good deal. On the other side, Zelensky cannot afford to give in, because the country is 100% behind not giving in, because they've lost too much blood. And the more that they see things like being undercut by Trump, um, uh, then they get more stubborn, not less.
Right. Thank you very much, Glenn, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Thank you. Now we stay in the region. According to reports, Defense Minister John Healey is set to announce on Monday that Britain is drafting new powers to allow troops to shoot down unidentified drones that threaten military bases. This move comes as a response to the growing threat, particularly in Europe last month. 19 drones crossed the Polish border and Russian jets violated Estonia's airspace, which Russia denies. At the same time, there were claims of Russian interference with Moldova's election. Healey will state that the new powers, part of the Armed Forces Bill, will allow military personnel to shoot down drones over UK military sites. Currently, counter-drone technologies track and divert incoming drones, but the new rules will provide the option to engage drones on site. The UK government has not ruled out extending these powers to airports as well. Now for this discussion, we go back to Glenn Grant. He's an ex-advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine, joins us live from Riga. Thank you, Glenn, for staying with us. Glenn, now looking at this, as we have talked about these kind of topics many times, we did mention that, this is very slow progressing, all this deterring drones, etc. It's moving super slow. But do you think that this will be benefiting UK to protect its airspace?
That is a very good question. I mean, there are a couple of things with this. I mean, one is that, of course, that drones have now been regularly over Germany, not just over Poland, regularly over Germany, and of course over Denmark, and also Finland. So this is a European-wide problem. Now, being allowed to shoot down drones over camps, military camps, beggars a few questions. What are they going to shoot them down with? I mean, I'm not sure that many commanding officers of camps are going to be very happy with their soldiers firing lots of rifle bullets into the air, because those bullets come down somewhere. Does the rule give them immunity if they fire at a drone, miss, and someone is killed? So I would need to see that law and see what it's written in there before I could comment on whether that is a good thing. The second is, bullets are not normally the best thing for firing at drones, because drones flip around the sky quite quickly, and they're extremely difficult to shoot at. And most camps will not have any other system other than rifles to shoot. And the problem is less camps than it is airfields, because drones actually, they really can disrupt the airways around the country. So lots of big questions. Will it help? Hey, it looks good, but I'm not sure it will. But on the other side, they also need a law to allow soldiers to fly drones in training more. There are still places, camps in UK, where the soldiers cannot fly drones to learn to train. So there's a lot more to be done on this by the UK government.
Right, and since also we touched on this before, but we said that not every drone is identified, and there are so many drones that we don't even know what are they capable of right now. So what are the potential security benefits and risks of authorizing military personnel to shoot down these identified drones over sensitive sites, and what will be or who will be taking accountability in case it was just, I don't know.
These are really, really good questions. And you're right, because we can still buy drones in the shops. That's the first thing. So small drones can be flown, and many army bases have got housing estates next to them. So, what do you do with a 7 or 10-year-old boy who's got his first drone and he's flying it and it goes close to the camp? It's very hard with drones to tell, is that a small off-the-shelf bought in the supermarket drone, or is it flying quite high, or is it actually an enemy drone with cameras on it, recording what's going on in the camp and looking at it? So I don't know. I don't know how they're going to solve this either, because if you're a soldier on guard with a rifle and a drone flies past, you're going to be quite cautious about just firing at any old drone, because you don't know whose it is, what it is, and what people are doing with it.
And as a European, Glenn, just assuming that you're European here, but as a European, how do you see or feel about this change in Europe? You know, all this and becoming more defensive, also arming. How do you see this change?
Well, I am European, of course, being very British. To be honest, I don't see much change at all. I mean, there's no obvious change that you can see. There might be changes going on in the committees between defense ministers and prime ministers and presidents all talking. But when you actually come out to the population, there is nothing else to see. You don't see any more vehicles on the road. You don't see lots of drones flying. You don't hear any more jets flying over the top of you than you hear normally. So there's not a visible change for most people. There will be changes at things like airports, as I said, you know, if they're closed down because of drones. And therefore, if you're traveling and you get delayed, that is a visible change. But you can't actually see what's behind that. And it's likely that no one's going to give you a great explanation either. So it's very hard to judge at the moment with, you know, what is Europe actually doing physically that we can all see to make us safer. And lots of people ask me this question in Latvia every single day of, you know, are we safe? Are we safer? Because you can't really just say, yes, we are because, apart from, yes, we are because of NATO, which is about the only answer that most people are ever going to get.
Right. Great learning from you, Glenn. Thank you for sharing that insight. And that was Glenn Grant. He's an ex-advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine. Now we move on to our next news. Days after Prince Andrew gave up his Duke of York title, British media has reported that he asked police to dig up personal information about Virginia Giuffre in 2011. Giuffre is the woman who has accused Prince Andrew of sexually abusing her as a teenager. The report has stated that Andrew had asked one of his personal protection officers to dig up information about his accuser. The report has cited an email sent by Andrew to Queen Elizabeth's deputy press secretary at the time. London's Metropolitan Police has said that it is actively looking into these allegations. Andrew, the younger brother of King Charles, had said that earlier this week that he would no longer use his title following years of criticism about his behavior and connections to the late U.S. sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. He has said that the accusations, which he has repeatedly denied, were a distraction from the work of the king and the royals. Now for this discussion, we are joined by Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief in Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Alison, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking back at this news, what more do we know, and what is happening with Prince Andrew and this the Giuffre case?
There's been a lot of pressure on Prince Andrew for years, starting with the interview he gave to the BBC about his relationship, which is called, I think, the Royal Royce of car crashes of interviews, in which he came across as less than truthful and as having absolutely no empathy for victims of sex trafficking, and also denying all the allegations against him if it wasn't so sad, in an absolutely hilarious way. At one point he said he was at Pizza Express with his daughters, and that the claims against him couldn't be true because he didn't sweat. And I think nobody believed it, but they thought it was just so outrageous the way he denied it, but also his absolute lack of empathy. So that began to cause his downfall, and also his less than truthful recollections or statements about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which have unraveled over the years as emails and other things have been leaked, that he was in contact with Jeffrey Epstein, that he sent an email saying, "We're in this together, we'll play again," which just seems so, just so sort of arrogant, really, and unempathetic to sex victims, and also like someone who's never been had to be accountable, somebody who's led this very prestigious royal life and has never had to answer to anyone. And so I think his reputation has gotten worse and worse, and it's gotten very difficult for King Charles and Prince William, who is the heir to the throne. And this last thing was just a step too far. And I think there was also allegations of links to a Chinese spy. And Prince Andrew has been known for his relationship with dodgy, as we say in the UK, less than honest business people and associations, which he has sought to defend. "I'm doing something for the country. This is a jolly good person. They've just been misunderstood." And so I think it got to a point where King Charles and Prince William, who is very strict, who's known for really not tolerating Prince Andrew, decided, in fact, I think he was pushed. He was told, "You have to do this." And so he fell on his sword and relinquished his titles. But it's been a long time coming. And it started, I think, with the interview with the BBC, I think it was in 2011. So that's quite long. That's 14 years ago.
Right. Talking about 14 years ago, this accusation started coming around that time. So are there any ethical and legal implications if members of royalty, such as Prince Andrew, or public officials use their influence to seek personal information on accusers or critics?
Well, the question is, first of all, it's completely unethical to be using, a state-appointed, a public official who's been assigned to look after you for your own personal dirty laundry or criminal activity in this case. That's totally unethical. Whether it's illegal, whether he could be prosecuted, that's another question. And the other question is, did the police officer act on it? From what we know so far, he didn't. So obviously that would be is the advantage of the police officer. He was asked to do something unethical and probably illegal, and he didn't act on it. But whether it would be considered, I don't know, sort of perverting, abuse of your office, because Prince Andrew was assigned by the state a police officer to guard him. Whether it could be considered abuse of office, but obviously the lawyers would have to look into that, the prosecutors would have to look into that. And very important would be whether the police officer acted on that, which from what we know so far, the police officer didn't.
Right. Thank you very much. Great learning from you, Alison. Please stay with us as we stay in this region. Now we move on to France as investigations continue into the Louvre Museum robbery case are underway. There are reports that the robbers used a furniture hoist to gain access to the Apollo Gallery, which houses royal collections. The masked thieves stole 9 19th century pieces of jewelry, including a crown that was found dropped and damaged while the thieves escaped. Also stolen was a diadem that once belonged to Empress Eugenie, which contains nearly 2,000 diamonds, and a necklace that once belonged to Mary Amélie, the last queen of France. It contains 8 sapphires and 631 diamonds, according to the Louvre's website. Among the other stolen objects was a reliquary brooch. It's interesting to note that the most famous theft in the museum's history occurred in 1911, when an Italian man stole Da Vinci's masterpiece, the Mona Lisa. Earlier, French Justice Minister Gérald Darmanin has addressed the jewelry heist at the Louvre Museum that took place on Sunday. The minister has stressed that the robbery negatively affected France's image, implying a failure of security services. Let's listen in to what the French minister has said.
Je pense que les Français ce matin, ils ont tous un peu l'impression, enfin je crois une grande majorité de Français, d'avoir été cambriolés. Et de même que Notre-Dame, quand elle brûlait, c'était notre église qui brûlait, même si on n'était pas catholique, se faire voler des bijoux au Louvre de façon aussi rocambolesque, c'est effectivement, ça affiche mal. Et par ailleurs, c'est une image de la France très négative. Il y a beaucoup de musées à Paris, il y a beaucoup de musées en France, il y a des valeurs inestimables dans ces musées.
Ouais.
Le fait que les vitres, par exemple, n'aient pas été sécurisées, c'est une question qu'on peut se poser. Qu'il y a moins de charges sur la voie publique,
Oui.
c'est une question qu'on peut se poser. Pour avoir été mise à l'intérieur, je sais qu'on ne peut pas faire non plus la sécurisation totale de tous les lieux. Mais ce qui est sûr, c'est que nous avons failli, puisqu'on est capable de mettre un mont de charge en pleine rue de Paris, faire monter des gens en quelques minutes pour récupérer des bijoux inestimables et donner une image déplorable de la France.
Now for this discussion, we go back to Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief in Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you very much, Alison, for staying with us. Now, this shocking news that has come in yesterday, it's like watching real-time Ocean movie and Ocean 11, I think. And how can high-profile crimes like this impact France's image and tourism, and what measures should French government had to prioritize to make sure to restore their public confidence in security as well?
Well, as you said, it's almost like something out of a film, that these robbers staged this very brazen heist in which, in a matter of minutes, they steal like France's crown jewels. Okay, France is no longer a monarchy, but they did have Napoleon and they did have a monarchy, and they have these amazing collection of jewels which are worth tens of millions, if not more, in euros. But we're not just talking about that, we're talking about the national heritage. And it does look very bad for France because the Louvre is one of the world's most visited, most prominent museums, and it's very famous with its pyramid made of glass. I think it's been around since the 1980s. And it's not just the monetary value, but it's also the historical value, the heritage value. And it looks like France can't even look after its own crown jewels. So that looks very bad for France, and obviously, for the government, because nothing has been done. What we're hearing is that there wasn't enough security at the museum, and there was a lot of visitors, and basically the people working there could not keep an eye on everything that was happening. But what makes this heist so extraordinary is it didn't happen in the dead of night on a March night or something. It happened in the morning as the museum was already open. But it was obviously so incredibly carefully planned. I think it'd been planned a long time in advance. And I think investigators, when they're looking into it, will see if they can match, the people that committed the robbery. There must be CCTV. With recent visits, because obviously these people have staged a recce. They'd have gone in beforehand, they'd have seen where it was, they'd have obviously worked out how they can cut through the glass, because the essence of a heist like this is time. And this happened, I think, in 6 or 7 minutes. So there will be clues. Also, a crown was dropped. One of perhaps the most precious piece was dropped. So there may be fingerprints on that too. But it is, as you said, a major embarrassment for France, and the fact that it can't look after its crown jewels.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Alison, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we stay on this topic. Now, several Asian news outlets have extensively covered the French museum heist, describing the operation as daring and audacious. Various news outlets questioned the security at the museum, which has welcomed 8.7 million visitors in 2024. Newspapers have talked about the heist in detail, discussing topics ranging from the duration of the heist to the items stolen in the theft. The statement by the French Interior Minister that the value of the stolen items is immeasurable and that the suspects are from foreign countries have also sparked curiosity among the media persons and the readers. Now, for this discussion, we go back to Alison Mutler. She's a former AP Bureau Chief in Romania, joins us live from Bucharest. Thank you, Alison, for staying with us. Alison, looking back at this news, do you think other countries will start being more cautious or, about the vulnerabilities in their national security and cultural heritage? Also, one of the countries holding a lot of high-profile or amazing jewels is UK. Do you think British museums will maybe stock up their security because of this news?
Well, I think they'd be very foolish not to step up their security. As I said, the Louvre is possibly one of the top 3 museums in the world, and it has a collection of immeasurable value. As you said earlier, I think somebody called it a national disaster, what happened. So I think the UK, they're very pragmatic and they're practical. They will definitely take notice of what happened and look to protect their most precious assets in museums. They'd be absolutely foolish not to, because it's not just the monetary value, it's the historical value, it's the value of the heritage, and these items generally can't be retrieved. So I think the UK will definitely take note. I know that there's good partnerships between the UK and France and cross-border crime, etc., etc. So they definitely will be cooperating on that. It's not the only time it's happened. It's a much smaller story, but I remember covering a story this year about how Romanian treasures were stolen from a museum in in the Netherlands. They're worth about 6 million euros. And again, it was very daring. So we do have a lot of very professional thieves out there. And I'm absolutely convinced that France will be sharing its intelligence, because robbers always leave a trace, whether they like it or not. They've left a trace. They dropped a crown. They didn't manage to burn the the machine that took them up to the floor where the Apollo room. So there will be traces. And I definitely think that France will be sharing its intelligence with nations, including Britain and maybe the United States and other places where there are very valuable connections, Italy, for example, for sure.
Right. Yes, we'll be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Alison, for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you. Now we move on and we stay in the region. More than a dozen emptied out plots and crumbling dwellings have marked the former homes of Roma families in Zaporizhzhia in Hungary. This comes as Zaporizhzhia becomes the first settlement to implement a new self-identity law, which has sparked controversy across Hungary. The town of about 3,500 inhabitants used the law to advance a decade-old scheme of purchasing rundown homes from residents before withdrawing it after media criticism. The parliament had enacted the so-called Law on Protecting Local Self-Identity in June, empowering municipalities to regulate real estate purchases. Let's listen into what some residents have said.
Mink úgy hallottuk, hogy a romákat akarja onnan kitelepíteni Mezőkeresztesről.
Miért?
Nem akarja, hogy romák lakjanak ott.
De mi történik, hogyha egy település meghoz egy ilyen rendeletet, hogy szeretné kiszorítani a nem odavaló, szerintük nem odavaló embereket, akkor ezt megtudja a következő település, és azt fogja mondani, hogy ha onnan kiszorítják ezt a családot, vagy azokat a családokat, hát hova fognak menni? A szomszédos faluba. Tehát a szomszédos falu is el fog fogadni egy ilyen rendeletet, hogy oda ne jöjjenek, és akkor utána a következő falu is elfogad egy ilyen rendeletet.
Now we move on to our next news. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has announced that the country will allocate a larger than expected budget for defense and aerospace research through 2030. With the goal of building the world's fourth largest defense industry, Lee has made this statement at the Seoul International Aerospace Defense Exhibition of this year, South Korea's largest ever arms fair. At the event, companies showcased advanced unmanned and AI-enhanced weapons, including howitzers and suicide drones, to boost global defense sales. According to SIPRI data, South Korea has ranked 10th in arms sales as of 2023. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, arms exports have become one of the country's fastest growing sectors, with South Korea securing multi-billion-dollar deals for everything from howitzers and ammunition to missiles and warships.
방위산업 4대 강국은 결코 불가능한 꿈이 아닙니다. 이미 민간의 기술력과 발전 속도는 세계적인 수준에 도달하고 있습니다. 우리 정부는 국방개혁에 민간이 적극적으로 참여하고 주도적인 역할을 수행할 수 있도록 지원을